It's been a pretty tough time for retro emulation and video game preservation efforts in recent months. Years, really. And the latest blow, the delisting of Sega Mega Drive and Genesis classics, closes the door on a completely legal method of acquiring the original unencrypted ROMs of 55 games. It used to be 58, but as we all know, the original Sonic trilogy was removed from the collection in 2022 ahead of Sonic Origins release. And now, the rest have followed. Delistings are commonplace at this point in time, usually occurring before a remake or remaster drops. And while it is indeed true that some of the games in this collection have modern entries incoming, a great deal more are just plain vanishing into the night with no alternative announced, which makes this delisting especially tragic, and not just because of the aforementioned legal ROMs that could be used in any emulator you wanted, but because, on Steam at least, the collection had full workshop support, encouraging and legitimizing ROM hacks, fan localizations, and overhaul mods like the Chill Edition series by OnlyFeet that made many of these more difficult older games a lot more accessible to a lot more players. And it's not just fans and modders getting burned here. Traveller's Tales founder John Burton's excellent director's cut of Sonic 3D Blast has now lost an official avenue of distribution for good. For Sega, the company which for years has facilitated this amazing preservation effort, to suddenly pull the plug on it all is quite the puzzle, isn't it? And raises the question of why drop this massive new clothing range on Amazon when the games they're inspired by are now unavailable to buy. In typical corporate fashion, we haven't been given a reason for this delisting, and what reason could they give anyway, beyond money is somehow involved? The scant clues that are out there point to Nintendo wanting to increase the value of their Switch Online offering and maybe bullying Sega into joining them in their war on emulation.
Do it now, or you're fired. Understand? Fired.
And make no mistake, it is a war at this point. On one side are the IP holders and publishers, who have shown with their repeated actions that they consider the games under their control to be nothing more than disposable consumer products, and will forever only look for ways to keep repackaging and reselling them over and over in perpetuity, or pushing consumers into subscription services to continue playing the games they enjoy. On the other side are us, the gamers, the actual consumers of their content. To us, they are not disposable products. Old video games are to us what comic books, board games, model railways and so on are to the generation above us who were kids in the 1950s, 60s and 70s. Just take a second to look at the current demographics of most emulation and retro game enthusiasts. See a pattern? We're in our late 30s and up. I'm 40. We were almost all kids, teenagers or young adults in the 80s, 90s and early 2000s. We grew up with the games industry. We were the people playing the old games when they were new, and all we are doing is the same thing every generation before us has done, trying to stay connected to the hobbies we enjoyed in our formative years because they were such enormous and influential parts of our lives and hold special meaning to us. We are no different to the old guys with giant model railway layouts or the folks making Plex servers because they only want to watch the films and TV shows they actually like. And it is this difference in how the games/products are viewed by the two sides that lies at the core of this entire issue. Before we get any further, I highly recommend this video from Modern Vintage Gamer that goes a lot deeper into the subject and shows just how much publishers don't care about emulation or preservation.
It's up to us to preserve video games, and by us I mean the entire community. Everyone who's watching this. If you're someone who plays an old game that's discontinued, out of print or lost media, you're not stealing anything. You simply have no other option because the publishers aren't interested in offering you one. It's as simple as that.
Now, I'm not going to frame him out of context here. He is not advocating for piracy, and neither am I. This is merely an acknowledgement that if we want our games preserved and playable, we are on our own to make it possible, which is the whole crux of this. We aren't pirates, we aren't thieves, and we aren't dangerous criminals, but that is how we are viewed and treated by the publishers of the games we love. In reality, we just don't want to see these important parts of our shared history being forgotten and lost to time. Revisiting our pasts and reminiscing over days gone by is an essential component of the human experience. I talked at length in the last video about how games have become cultural touchstones that reach across generational lines in the exact same way that books, movies and other forms of entertainment media have done. What the rights holders don't seem to understand while they engage in their relentless game of whack-a-mole against the hosters of ROMs and makers of emulators is we are not coming back. We aren't interested in rebuying things we already bought years ago or subscribing to an online service to play a game. The developers that did the original work at the time got paid at the time. Ownership matters. Point blank period. I paid money. How I play it or what device I play it on in the decades ahead is my choice. Original hardware ages and dies, but the game I bought still exists. And I still want to play it sometimes. We want our games the way we remember them, in their original forms or as close to it as we can possibly get. If we are interested in a remaster or a remake or a new compilation, rest assured we will buy it. But we want such re-releases in addition to, not instead of, the originals. The film industry understands this. They don't go burning every copy of a film that exists whenever a remaster comes along. Well, maybe some do. Capcom has the right idea. They understand that originals and remakes can coexist and share fan bases and everyone wins and it's super awesome and...
La-di-da-di-da-di-da, isn't it all wonderful?
Why can't all publishers be like Capcom? The simple solution that is so often asked for and always ignored is for publishers to include the ROMs and emulation rights with every game release, and then provide official emulators that can be bought and downloaded when support for a system ends and the next one comes along, and continue making money off those games forever. If they were to do that, most of their ROM problem would disappear overnight. Why? Because most of the people looking for ROMs are just old farts that want to play a game they remember from the past. It truly is that straightforward. And this ROM problem is only going to get worse for publishers as time goes by, too. Right now, there's a growing schism among the younger generations of gamers. They too are becoming tired of the modern games industry as it plows ever deeper into commodifying and monetizing every aspect of a game they possibly can, regardless of its effect on the player experience, and are discovering the simple joy of games the way they used to be. Don't take my word for it though. Check out this video from Devin Chase and hear it from them for yourself.
So it doesn't necessarily need to be retro games, it just happens to be the games I reach for the most.
As newer console generations arrive, emulators for the more recent systems that younger gamers grew up playing are now receiving significant development efforts from the community, and with these younger players adding to the ranks of retro emulation enjoyers, a huge and competitive hardware market has exploded to life around the demand for older games. Do you really think all of this comes from a desire to enable crime and piracy? Publishers are literally leaving money on the table here. Imagine if these were all official emulation storefronts. I'll refer to the words of Steam's Gabe Newell once again. Piracy is almost always a service problem and not a pricing problem. I completely understand publishers' desire to keep repackaging and reselling their games, but sell us the versions we want. Sell us the original ROMs. Embrace and legitimize emulation. That's the ultimate point of this video, to hopefully elucidate for the suits upstairs at these companies that they are scared of some great piracy bogeyman that doesn't exist. We are just gamers, and we want to play our games. Now, I am definitely not saying that all emulation efforts are innocent. I am firmly of the opinion that Yuzu and Ryujinx were big mistakes regardless of the developer's intentions, because making an emulator for a current gen system that's actively being sold and supported by its rights holder is unquestionably a way to enable piracy. In fact, it provably was used for piracy, and that fact has poked the Nintendo bear and hurt our entire case. Ultimately, until publishers get on board with emulation and preservation, it really is up to us to keep our gaming history alive. It's not all doom and gloom though. Good Old Games has started making a serious effort at preservation now, and Bleem, remember them, has been collecting as many old IPs as it can for a few years now, and recently launched a Kickstarter to fund a retro-focused online platform, which if successful could be a huge win for this hobby. And the venerable ROM hosting website Vim's Lair now has ROM hacks available, but even this is barely a drop in the ocean of video game history. So take good care of your old consoles and games, dump those ROMs and don't feel any shame, you're not doing anything wrong. Until publishers change their tune, you are the Retro Rebellion.